Um, so a passage in the Bible that I really like is Galatians 5, and Galatians 5 talks about what true salvation really is, and how how a Christian who is truly saved is supposed to look like. And so um Galatians 5 the first verse says, "From freedom Christ has set us free. Stand fast therefore, and do not submit yourselves to a yoke of slavery." So this verse is emphasizing, right, that when Christ died for us, right, he gave us the opportunity to be free from our sin, right? But so since we're free, it's telling us to no longer be bound, or no longer act like we're bound. Don't To not be controlled by this sin. It's telling us to not go back to being held down by sin. And the only way to be free, is through Christ's sacrifice, meaning nothing that we do can set us free. And if you go later to verse 4, it says, "You are served from Christ. You who would be justified by the law have fallen away from grace. For through the Spirit, by faith, we wait for the hope of righteousness." This verse is, saying that we achieve freedom, through Christ, through His grace, and that we're and not through the law, meaning it's not through our good works, it's not through following, the commandments. Not, although following the commandments are important, it's not through that we have grace. And that if you try to earn your freedom, or if you try to earn your salvation, that you've fallen away from grace. And it says, "For it's through the Spirit, by faith," meaning it's through your belief in Him, that you are saved. There's a term for trying to get saved through your works, and it's called legalism. Now, legalism is dangerous, right? Because it takes you away from the truth. It takes you away that it takes you away from God's grace, and it makes you feel a need to earn His love, to earn His mercy, to earn the salvation. And since we're so broken, we're so sinful, we have a sinful nature. No matter how much we try, we'll never be able to achieve salvation, or earn God's love, right, through our works. It's tiring, and that's why God, He knew that we would never be able to earn salvation, or His love. So that's why He offered His Son as a sacrifice on the cross. Now if you go to verse 13, it says, "For you were called to freedom, brethren, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love be servants of one another." Now this is the opposite of trying to earn God's love. This is simply just not doing anything. Now the reason that this is bad is because we're called to have faith. And in the book of James, it says that faith without works is dead. So if you claim to have faith, but yet you don't have works to back your faith up, then your faith isn't really genuine. This doesn't mean that you have to, do works to earn God's love. It just means that if you have faith in God, if you truly have faith, you're going to naturally want to produce works. You're going to naturally want to do works. Because if you have faith, it'll allow you to understand God's love for you. And God's love for you is going to make you want to serve Him, and, dedicate your life to Him. And the verse is saying to not use your, freedom or your salvation as, an opportunity to sin. Be like, "Oh, no, I'm saved, so I can sin. I can do whatever." Later in the verse, it says that, serve one another and do love, right? Because where there's love, you won't want to, if you love someone, you won't want to hurt them. So this is why the verse says, "For the whole law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Because if you truly love someone, you won't want to steal from them. You won't want to kill them. You won't want to, you know, hurt them. Now after that, if you go down to verse 16, it says, "But I say, walk by the Spirit, and do not gratify the desires of the flesh. But for the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. These are opposed to each other, to prevent you from doing what you would." So the verse is saying that, the flesh and the Spirit have different desires, that they're constantly at war to each other, at each other. And it's telling us to walk by the Spirit instead of the flesh. Why? Because the desires of the spirit are the desires of God. The flesh does what's convenient for it. The flesh doesn't care about the consequences of your action. It wants to do whatever it makes it feel fulfilling, alive. But yet the spirits are the desires of God. And the reason that they are hard is because most people are used to following their flesh and instead of the spirit. But the desires of the flesh are to sin, and the desires of the spirit are to walk with unity with God. After this, it goes to list, the fruits of the spirit and the fruits of the flesh. And then it says in verse 24, and those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Now, essentially, when you crucify something, it means to kill. And so this verse is saying that those that walk with Jesus, right, that walk with Christ, they killed essentially their flesh, meaning that they choose not to follow it and choose to follow the spirit. As a result, weakening the flesh, killing the flesh. But what does it mean to kill the flesh? To kill the flesh to me, it means to constantly be at war, to constantly choose, to follow the spirit and to not fulfill the desires of the flesh, even if they're tempting. You still sometimes, mess up and you won't be perfect, but it's about trying, and it's about having God to pick you up when you fall. Eventually, the more and more you walk with the spirit, the stronger and stronger the spirit will get. Because, it's like a muscle. The more you train a muscle, the stronger it will get. So the more you train the flesh, the stronger the flesh will get. But the more you train the spirit, the stronger the spirit will get. Being a follower of Christ isn't easy, and we were never promised a smooth sailing. In reality, it's the opposite. It's hard, and sometimes it feels like you want to quit. But, it's about trying. It's about growing, with God. And know that and it is also written that those who endure till the end will be saved. God isn't looking for someone that will never mess up. God's looking for someone that will put in the effort to try, to get better daily. Because the real competition isn't being better than anyone. It's being better than your yesterday self. It's improving as a person as you go, day by day. Improving, and walking with Christ throughout your life. And right now the progress may be slow, but it is also written that he who started a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Christ. God bless you. Have a great day.